There's other ingredients that people do not know that could end up into like chef's table around or chef's kitchen around the planet and that are coming from this island. So I came to Madagascar for vanilla. I have to say I stayed, for other ingredients. I decided to come back because behind each ingredient, there were a human story. There was this human connection from.
Some experts chase attention, but the smart ones build authority. You're listening to the Authority on Demand podcast, where credibility becomes your competitive advantage. Every week, we're pulling back the curtain on how founders and leaders turn expertise into inbound demand through books that position, media that converse, and strategies that actually move the needle. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, your host and Chief Creative Officer at Authority on Demand. Now, let's turn your authority into leverage.
Okay, so close your eyes for a moment and imagine the warm, sweet aroma of vanilla. Not the artificial extract in a bottle, but the real thing. The scent of a hand-pollinated orchid flower that took 6 months to mature into a bean, dried carefully by the hands that have practiced this art for generations. That vanilla may have traveled from a small village in Madagascar, from farmers you've never met but whose work touches your life every single day. Well, everyone, on today's episode, we're going to be speaking with Emmanuel Laroche, VP of Marketing in the Flavor and Food Ingredient Industry, podcast host of Flavors Unknown, and author of the new book, A Taste of Madagascar. We're going to be chatting all about his journey in Madagascar and his work and the writing process as well. So it's an honor to have you on, Emmanuel. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Danielle. Thank you again for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
Hey, real quick before we jump back in, if you're loving what we're doing here, hit that subscribe button and drop us a like. We're bringing you the best authors, the most real conversations, and all the writing wisdom that you didn't know you needed. So stick around because it only gets better from here. All right, now let's get back to the conversation.
Yeah, of course. I'm really excited too. You have some really valuable insights that not a lot of people have experienced. I mean, everyone listening today, right before we started recording, we were chatting about the fact that, well, not many people have even been to Madagascar. So it's great to hear that, we get an authentic side of this nation. So right, speaking of which, let's chat about you a little bit. I mean, you describe your journey to Madagascar starting with just work assignments that eventually opened something in you. So tell us about that and about yourself in general and, how this came to be.
Yes. So, maybe to start with, you mentioned Madagascar, and a lot of people, do not know, where it is. I did mention in the book, and when we talked before the beginning of this podcast, that I had some comments when I said that I will go to Madagascar, and after that I wrote a book or I was writing a book about Madagascar. People said to me, "You mean the movie?" And I'm like, no, not the movie. No, this is a real place. And they said, what? This is a country? I'm like, yeah, it is. So it is, in fact, located for people, who do not know, at 250 miles on the or east coast of Africa, sorry, on the east coast of Africa. And it's in fact the fourth largest island, on the planet. And because of my job, as you mentioned, I'm in charge of marketing for a company called Simrise, who manufacture natural flavor, natural extracts for the food and the beverage industry. I've been talking about vanilla for a long part of my career in that business. Why? Because 80% of the world vanilla is produced in Madagascar on this island. And so it was natural for me to that my, let's say, journey in my job took me to the island. So as you just mentioned, it started with this work assignment. I launched back in 2019 a contest, to launch related to a program of a marketing program for a new extract of vanilla on the US market. And the prize was to take three of the winner of that competition. So a lot of chefs participated, American chef, pastry chefs, mixologists. And the idea is that I was taking them closer to the source of vanilla, so to the island. And Because of COVID, we had to push the trip a bit later, but in 2022 we went there. So it started with this assignment, and that was really work related. And I had to say that when I arrived on the island, on the capital called Antananarivo, so already the name itself is, almost like you awaken from a dream. It's like, this very long name. And that first contact with the rice fields, coming from the airport to the capital, looking at this beauty of this island on the landscape was really like made an impression of me. And obviously I went for those ingredients, vanilla. I discovered other ingredients that we probably going to talk about later on the podcast. But to mention a few, pink peppercorn, wild black pepper that is endemic from the island. I started to think about that, there's other ingredients that people do not know that could end up into like chef's table around or chef's kitchen around the planet, and that are coming from this island. So it started with the vanilla, and I came to Madagascar for vanilla. I have to say I stayed, if you will, for other ingredients. And I decided to come back because behind each ingredient, there were a human story. There was this human connection from the vanilla farmer, from like the beekeepers, because there's a lot of, interesting honey, because there's a lot unique biodiversity on the island. Behind, the people that were working on this wild white black peppercorn, there was a lot of, life of those individuals that I said I had to write the story about those people. So about the ingredients, but about the people behind, those ingredients. So that's like almost created like an emotional shift, for me, that it was just not about flavors, but it was about, cultural identity and things that, as we said at the beginning, that obviously people had no idea and don't really know what's going on, on this island.
Absolutely. Well, wow, that's really quite the journey too. I mean, the fact that you went there just to think about, one aspect and you discovered so many, other things. I mean, just to touch upon it, you mentioned that there's many other like flavors that came from this. So just real
Mhm.
quick, if you want to dive into that for us, because I'm kind of curious. Tell us a bit more
Sh-
about that.
Sure. So, the one that really the American chef that came with me. So for people that are into food culture in the US, they probably have heard the name of Elizabeth Faulkner. She's very well known. She has been on TV shows. She's based in LA. I've been as well with chef Michael Gulota, who is based in New Orleans. And then we had with us a mixologist, a person that at the time of the trip was the bar manager or director of the Death and Company in New York City. So it was very interesting to see how they as well discovered, the taste of Madagascar. And one specific spice like really blown us away. It was in fact the pink peppercorn, which is not in fact a pepper at all, but it's it's a berry from a tree, which is, we know that we can find it here, as well, and in a store. So those little pinkish, little like berries and or corn, and they have like a unique flavor over there, very citrusy, very fresh. And the chef themselves were blown away because they said, we have used peppercorn that we could find in the US, but the profile is not the same. And they said that's going to be very disappointing when you come back. But this peppercorn is very important for the island because this is Madagascar is the second producer on the planet of pink peppercorn, the first one being Brazil. So that was like really a great discovery. And so we discovered the taste of it on my first trip. And then I came back twice, after once in 2023. And then again this year, my last trip was in May 2025. And I had the chance to really dig deep in the world of pink peppercorn because it's on the southeast part of the island. My third
Right.
trip was really about in the south, and I went there because 80% of the production takes place, in the southeast part of the island. But there is, just to mention, you saw the wild black peppercorn, but there's cloves as well, which is a big producer of cloves. It's Madagascar. There is honey that I mentioned. There's a lot of biodiversity. 90%, in fact, of the fauna and flora of the island doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. And so you have honey, like mangrove honey, you have lychee honey, you have primary forest, honey, which is blend of, different trees and blossoms. You find caviar. That's the things that I was the most surprised about. On my first trip, I had the chance to meet the owner of the first sturgeon farm in the Indian Ocean. And they invited me to come back and to visit, and spend time, on the location on the lake when they have, all the sturgeons and the production of caviar. And that's something that really blew me away. And it was as well, and I know we're probably going to talk about this, but this idea of really contrast that exists because obviously Madagascar is a very poor country, but then it was amazing for me to see that there is caviar that comes from that country, so that these two extremes that cohabit in the same place.
Understood. Well, hey, amazing stuff. I would have never even thought about a lot of those flavors myself. I'm not in the culinary world, but it's cool to like see it through your eyes like that. But speaking of seeing it through your eyes, I mean, I think this is a great transition into the book itself.
Mhm.
I mean, if everyone listening today, if you're interested in learning a little bit more about Emmanuel's experiences there, the book is a great resource. It kind of blends travel writing, cultural journalism, food writing, memoir. It's a lot of genres mixed in one. So to transition into the writing process itself, I mean, how did you decide what structure and voice would best serve the story you wanted to tell? Was that a intentional decision on your part, or did it come from just inspiration? Let me know.
Yeah, I think that's really, as I said at the beginning, when I made the decision to write this book that was in fact took place between my first and second trip, that was really focused on the ingredients. And, I had the chance on the second trip to like rebuild the content related to those ingredients. I had this personal like guide, in fact, someone that became, a friend, and that helped me connect with a lot of farmers, a lot of entrepreneurs, around the island. And I conducted like 18 interviews in 14 days, on the second trip. So that was really ingredient focus first in my mind. And you cannot really cover in depth, those ingredients if you don't talk about the face and, the human dimension behind those ingredients, because there's a lot of resilience on the island. It's an island which is very strongly exposed to very difficult climate. There's a lot of cyclone, which is, in the Indian Ocean, the equivalent of the hurricanes. And that can destroy, a crop and so on. So that was really for me interesting to see how those people were very proud of the work that they were doing,
Right.
putting together, those ingredients, raising those species, because there's as well, some unique beef variety, there, what species, and then all cultivating, those crops that in fact were not consumed locally, but most of them are exported. So for me, like the idea of writing that book was suddenly taking a different dimension, this human dimension. And then obviously you cannot talk about those individuals without describing the context. So the landscape of Madagascar, very interesting. It's very different from like the center of the island, which is the highlands. There's a mountain like a chain, in the middle of the island that split the island in two parts. And then you have the coasts, and then you have the south, which is, very hot. And the idea is that I had to describe, the landscape connected to the story, the human story. So that's why this book is structured the way I did it. I decided to do it almost like a tasting menu. It's like each chapter is an ingredient, but then, I take the people into, like the reader, into a journey, which is the journey I took. In fact, for each of those, ingredients, meeting those interesting people, and obviously describing that landscape because, I thought it was interesting to have that book being like a mix of a travelogue and as well like, a food discovery.
Understood. Well, wow. I can tell how there's so many different elements playing a part from like the landscape to the people to the, ingredients you're discovering that all kind of intertwine to shape the, the nature of your book. I mean, that being said, then I'm just curious to know, I mean, being that you were traveling and doing all these things and communicating with so many people, so many different aspects, how did you find the time to write this book? What was that like for you on like a day-to-day basis?
Talking about the process, yeah. So as you said, I'm in charge of marketing, so that's my day job. So it takes already a lot of my time, and I do travel a lot around the country here in the U.S. and abroad. But I already experienced the writing process. This is my second book. So in 2022, I published a first book called Conversations Behind the Kitchen Door, which is a lot based on some of the interview that I did with chefs, and pastry chef and mixologists on the podcast Flavors Unknown. And so I really started to like the writing process, and I decided already for the first book that the best way for me to write was not to try to do it like every day. Sometimes you hear writers that says, "Oh, you need to write every day," and I get it. If you can, perfect. But for me, it didn't work out. It was very difficult for me to focus on my day job and then try to switch to creative writing, after. So what I decided to do is the best process for me was to take like long weekend. So to leave like home, like a Thursday night and then come back, on the Monday evening. And the way I work is that I am an early bird. So the Friday, the Saturday, the Sunday, I will wake up at 5 a.m. And from 5 a.m. to 11 a.m., I will be writing. Then after that, because I'm a foodie, so from 11 to 2, I will explore, the food area, where I was located, and then do a lot of hiking. So I love that. So between 2 to 4, a little bit of hiking. And then when I come back, to wherever I was, most of the time on Airbnb, then I will reread, what I have written in the morning. And I've done this, and it took me in fact, either book, it took me 22 months to write the manuscript. So maybe a bit long, but that's what I had to go through because I was not writing every day.
Well, I mean, I think it's a great process what you did. You kind of, spent some time to write it itself and then circle back to reread it, which is great. Not the first round might not be perfect, but you recognize
Oh,
that and you scope out
sure.
time to go
The
back.
second one was not perfect either. So,
Right. Or the third or the
as you know,
fourth.
yeah, you have several drafts. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. No, that's great though. And I think that's a tip that a lot of authors today can, learn from, the nature of it's not going to be easy. It's not going to all happen in the first round.
For
It's going to take
sure.
time.
That's
Yeah.
definitely for sure. And the idea as well is that for me it's important, to go into places that I can find, inspiration and and I found as well like process, and everyone is different, I guess. But for me it's like listening to music. So I have like my playlist of in fact, some of the tunes that I play to put me into like the mood of writing. So I
Mhm.
have a certain type of music that will, sometimes it's even songs that, like have a certain rhythm and that really motivates me. Especially I need it at 5 a.m. And then, during like more the writing process, when I'm writing, it's more, more like no lyrics, but I'm more quiet type of music. But I love writing with some music background. It helps me to focus and maybe find some inspiration. I'm not sure, but that the way how it works for me.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has their own process, and for some it works one way, some others it works a
Yeah.
different way. It depends on your mood too. Like maybe one day you want that music, one day you want more silence, depending on the
Hmm.
task you're tackling. So great tip right there too. But now that the book has launched and it's complete, I'm curious to know, like, what has surprised you most about the writing process? What have you learned about yourself, about Madagascar, about storytelling? Perhaps like just a tidbit for people to draw from. What surprised you the most in the process?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's for me it was maybe something about me, about the fact that the importance of of travel, and the way that travel always inspired, force you to go, I would say, outside of your comfort zone, and make you look at things from a different perspective. And I think that I definitely learned that about myself in that trip, because travel is not sometimes like an easy process. And here on the island, the roads are most of the roads are in very bad condition, and there's a lot of
Right.
dirt roads. So I have, one specific trip that was from the west side on the island to the east side. It took us, like, with my friend, like 30 hours straight to driving. So 30. So we left at 6 p.m. and then the whole night without stopping, the rest of the day after without stopping, just for bio breaks and a little bit of food. And you can feel that you're readjusting your spine. So through that road, but then you access, places that otherwise I would not be able to really write, on the book, and obviously survive those. And so for me, it was this idea of, travel really, force you to look at things differently. And again, as I said, put you like in a different mindset, and help you as well to to think about
Yeah.
like places and people from a different eyes.
Of course. Well, that's definitely a lot to think about. And I'm sure the book itself dives into more of these details as well, for people who are interested in finding more information on it. And speaking about finding more information, if people are interested in learning more about your story and getting connected with you and, perhaps learning about upcoming projects, where's the best place for people to head to?
Yeah, so they can, for the book, it's easy. It's a taste of Madagascar.com. There's a landing page, about the book. There's some little videos that they have an idea of, what the book is about. Otherwise, for the podcast, it's Flavors Unknown. So again, the website will be flavorsunknown.com. And then people can follow me on my Instagram, at Flavors Unknown.
Okay, well, guys, we're going to put the links in the description box of this podcast today, so you can go ahead and click on over and get in the know. And that's the best way to do so. Because, I mean, even if don't intend to go to Madagascar yourself, this is a great way to learn about it. And of course, learn more about like the flavors behind it. It's a great journey. And, I'm curious to know then, I actually just mentioned it before, but what else might be on the horizon for you that we can be looking forward to? Any other projects or books that might be coming out that you're currently working on? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, not coming. I'm writing on another project, but this book, obviously is published at the end of January 2026, on Madagascar. So I have started writing the book, but I am taking a different adventure this time, challenging myself. I am writing, in fact, a novel, and it's still in the food world, but it's a murder mystery that takes place, in the food world. So I am at, maybe a third of the book written at the moment. So there's still a lot way to go, but I'm enjoying the process as well.
Okay, yeah, I mean that's what it's all about at the end of the day, right? The process of writing, and it's not
Hmm.
an easy one. It's a roller coaster journey, like we talked about before. But I like that. So it's good to know that people, if all I have to do that is connect on social media, then and we can be on the lookout for that.
Yeah. Yeah, probably 2027 though,
Okay.
to be
Yeah,
realistic.
yeah. In the meantime, check out your current book. It's there for you to learn from. Taste of Madagascar. So yeah, as we begin to wrap up today, I'm curious to know if you have any last words of advice to offer the audience. What should we hold on to as we continue on with our day?
Yeah, I mean that really, I think that's the the people that hopefully had the chance to read the book. And for me the expectation is if like people to stay curious. I think it's important. Like embrace everything that comes your way, and then make the decisions to travel and meet different culture, people. And that's what I'm expecting for the people to let's say experience when they read the book.
Well, understood. I thank you for sharing that with us. I think it's a great way to kind of wrap it all up for us. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure to learn about your story, your journey, and some of the tastes that you discovered out in Madagascar. And to anybody who wants to learn more, again, check out A Taste of Madagascar. It's available now. It'll change how you taste food, how you think about the ingredients in your kitchen, and your own potential for reinvention as well. So thank you for joining us, Manuel. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on.
Thank you for having me, Danielle. I really appreciate it.
Of course, of course. And to everybody listening, if this episode inspired you, make sure to check out other episodes of Authors on Mission for more writers' tips. Share this with somebody who needs to hear it. And of course, check out Emmanuel's links. They're in the description box of this podcast. Until next time, remember that your story matters, your voice matters, and it's never too late to start. We'll see you next time on the Authors on Mission podcast.
That's a wrap on another episode of the Authority on Demand podcast. If today's conversation sparked something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this episode with a founder or a leader who's ready to stop being the best kept secret in their industry. If you want to turn your expertise into inbound demand, head to authorityondemand.com to see how we help clients go from unknown to in demand. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, and I'll catch you on the next one. Now, go build some authority.